Hello, hypothetical audience. I'm JJNW'S Ghost, and welcome to Hazy Cosmic Jive. Today is Saturday, April 16th, 2022. Happy Easter weekend to all those who celebrate. I know I am particularly looking forward to Easter lunch tomorrow, because my mom is cooking lamb. I love lamb. But since I ended up recording so late last week, I wanted to wait until Saturday before recording. I felt like Friday was a little too soon, since tomorrow's Easter, I'll probably be busy, so today felt just right. But I am planning on trying to go back to Fridays next week. So I'll start my life updates with some fun misadventures from the week before moving on to my new projects. Monday, I went to get my oil changed in my car, but I ended up locking the keys inside. So the guy had told me, hey, just leave your keys inside the vehicle. So I did, but after I exited the car, I closed the door just on pure muscle memory without thinking that, oh wait, I always lock the doors when I'm inside the car. It was a big whoops, but ultimately it wasn't an issue. They were able to get the keys out of the car, didn't have to pay anything extra to do that, and nothing in the car broke. It was all Gucci. So Tuesday was actually pretty funny. So I go to Walmart to pick up some groceries and some socks, because most of my current pairs are full of holes. I'm putting my stuff in the trunk of my car, and this styrofoam cooler that lives in the trunk just starts sliding down. I push it back up, put my stuff in, and then I grab the case of water. As I'm putting the water into the trunk, the cooler just slides down again, and because my hands are full, I can't stop it, so it just lands on the street. But it was a really blustery day, so it does not stay put. The wind blows the cooler just all the way across the Walmart parking lot. I am literally watching it bounce across the parking lot, bounce super high, and then land into the road. And the entire time, so as this is going across the parking lot, I'm like, oh, okay, this is some weird Looney Tunes shit, but I mean, hey, if I'm gonna lose the cooler, I'm glad it happened after we went all the way to Plano instead of before, or worse, during. But okay, that's weird, hopefully I'll be able to go grab it. Then it bounces all the way into the road as the traffic's going. I'm like, oh no, please don't start some Final Destination shit. I do not want anyone to die because of this. I don't want anyone to get injured because of this. I don't want it to be like someone tries to swerve out of the way and hits a car, but thankfully none of that happened. So it was just goofy Looney Tunes and not Final Destination 2. My last misadventure of the week happened yesterday. So I go to KFC for lunch because I find myself really craving some fried chicken. I place my usual order, which is 2 thighs, extra crispy. No sides, no biscuit, no drink. Just the chicken. That usually costs about $4.50, something about that range. But yesterday, it cost me $8.64. So, I paid it without thinking, but as I'm waiting for my food, it hits me. I'm like, wait, I just paid double what I usually pay. This is about what I would pay for a combo. Did they think I ordered a combo by mistake? Because if so, and then they just charged me for that, I'll take the combo. It's not what I wanted, but it'll be fine. So I ended up waiting a really long time for my food. There was a couple who came in after me that left before me, and it looked like they ordered a full a bucket or two. They left with quite a bit of stuff. I'm like, what? Why is this taking so long? What's going on? So one of the cooks comes out of the kitchen, he sees me, he goes over to where I'm sitting, and he's like, hey, did you order the tenders? No, I just ordered 2 pieces of chicken, but then I also show him the receipt, and okay, but I also am curious, usually it only costs $4 or so. Why does it cost so much? And he looks at it, he's like, okay, it is because our prices have gone up. The price of chicken has gone up. Sorry about that. I'm like, okay, well, that sucks to hear. Man, this is a lot pricier than I thought. So then I ask, I'm like, well then, how much is the combo? So he does the math, punches it into the machine, and it's about $8.40 to get a combo. That's right, hypothetical audience. So 2 pieces of chicken with no sides, no drink is about $0.25 more expensive than getting the full combo. And that makes absolutely no sense to me. I was like, okay, so dude, just 2 pieces of chicken has gone up. Man, the combo must be really expensive. No, it's cheaper. What? No, there ended up not really being an issue because I was like, well, in that case, since I already paid and I haven't gotten my food, can you just give me the combo? Because for all intents and purposes, I've already bought one, in terms of the price. He's like, yeah, that's fine. So he gave me the combo. The food was fine too. Like, it still tasted good. I was like, on the way home, I was like, man, if I had to do like all that waiting, because I don't know how long I was there. I felt like I was there like 20 minutes just waiting for food. I was like, if I had to be there like that long, go through this weird ordeal with the price, and then it tastes like shit, I'm gonna be mad. But thankfully, it tasted fine. It was just a really bizarre instance. Oh, and another thing that happened during the week, I don't remember what day it was, but it came from Wordle. So whenever I play Wordle, I always start with 2 words. I start with the word mince, and then the word ultra. And in those 2 guesses, I'm covering most of the major consonants like sans S, and then doing the vowels aside from O. So generally after those 2 guesses, I have a pretty good idea of what the word might be. Maybe not 100%. I'm like, oh, okay, I usually will have about 2 to 3 letters, and then my next guess, I'll like throw an S, an O, maybe an H in there, maybe a P, just kind of fill stuff out. But during the week, one of the words was mince, and so it was just like, man, you got on the first try. I was like, that just felt kind of nice. Like my random word, I felt validated for using it for like the past month or so that was just kind of cool. So as for my projects, I'm currently working on 3. So the first is, it's a writing project. I have a manuscript that I wrote last year. I think I might have started it in 2020, but I know I finished it in air quotes last year because it's really not finished. Like, I remember being done with it. I was like, okay, I think quite a few chapters I didn't really finish. I just kind of put like a paragraph of notes at the end. It's like, this is what happens here. Like, all right, I don't really want to finish this conversation now, but finish the conversation. The chapter's done. A lot of stuff was held over from previous drafts and ideas that are no longer part of the story, or just, I don't know how well they work anymore. So I definitely have a lot of work to do on it. But I am having a lot of fun. I've said it before, and I'll say it till my dying breath. I love writing. I love working on stories. And so even this, like, as messy as it is, I'm loving seeing it slowly come together. I'm looking forward to playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 later this year. So I decided that I'm gonna catch up on all the Xeno games before then. So that is my current video game project. I've already played XC2, and I got about halfway through Xenoblade Chronicles 1, but I didn't finish it. So my plan is to go ahead and finish 1, and I've made some pretty good progress on it. I'm hoping to be done relatively early next week. Then I'm going to play Chronicles X, because Jose has it on his Wii U. Then Xenogears, the Xeno Saga trilogy, and then I'm going to end with the Torna DLC to XC2. I have about 5 months till XC3 comes out, so I feel like I will have plenty of time to get caught up. I don't know how many of these games I really need to play to understand the other ones, but given how XC2 ended, and how I'm pretty sure it was connected to Xenosaga, and how the trailer for 3, it shows off a lot of stuff from 1 and a lot of stuff from 2, which otherwise have very minimal connections, I have a feeling that, man, I really do need to play all of these games, and I'll probably have a much deeper appreciation. So the other project I'm juggling is I'm watching Gintama. I'd already watched most of the first season, and right now I'm pretty early into season 2. I don't find myself binging it that much, like usually just a couple episodes at a time. That might change once the serious arcs start. Part of my plan for Xeno is every time I finish a game, before I jump into the next one, I want to go ahead and just binge whatever season of Gintama I'm on. I might not do that when I'm playing the Xenosaga games, just because it is, like, while the others have very loose continuity, that is, from what I understand, very much a 1, 2, 3. So if like between 1 and 2, I'm like, man, I know I need to finish this season, but I really want to go ahead and start 2, I might go ahead and do that. But overall, I'm definitely enjoying Gintama. There's a lot of just stupid humor in it. And I find that, like, a lot of times, like, when we're watching Disney movies, like Wreck-It Ralph, when they make all the jokes about, like, duty or wetting your pants, like, I love this movie, but these jokes don't super work for me here. For whatever reason, when they're in Gintama, they just don't bother me. They don't bother me nearly as much. Like, it has the stupidest humor, but it works. I really do enjoy it. And speaking of anime I enjoy, let's go back to Lane. We're about halfway through our coverage, so let's start the second half. Hello, hypothetical audience, and welcome to some hazy cosmic jive. I'm JJNW'S, and for today's jive, I wanted to go back to 1998 and talk about a show called Serial Experiments Lane. Now, I don't remember when I was first introduced to Lane. I'd estimate probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I was aware of its reputation as a cyberpunk anime with various different, gosh, I sound like Charles Barkley, with various different interpretations as to both its themes and its overall plot. I was mostly interested in it because it had the same head writer as Digimon Tamers. Now, a far cry from Digimon Adventure, Tamers starts innocent enough, with an uncomfortable moment here or there before devolving into a full-on horror show for its final arc. I remember loving that as a kid, and I did rewatch it. I believe it was last year, the year before, with Clay, and it still holds up really well. Now, I watched Lane when I was first aware of it, and it didn't do much for me. I do remember feeling uncomfortable when I would walk near a power line and, I would hear that telltale hum. But that's one of the only things I took from the show, aside from Let's All Love Lane and the opening, which is a certified banger. But a couple weeks ago, a few friends of mine started watching Lane, and their conversations and enthusiasm for it convinced me to give it a rewatch. And, of course, I wanted to talk about my experience. So what I decided to do is take notes for every episode while I'm watching them about like what sticks out to me. And then I want to make a short video just about each individual episode and my experience with it. I want to go over things like, the basic plot, if there's any particular shots that really stood out to me, and what are the major themes that I'm picking up on from each individual episode and how they contribute to the larger themes of the whole narrative. So, without further ado, let's log in to Serial Experiments Lane. Layer 7, Society. True to the title, this is an episode about Lane's connections to the people around her. We start by seeing the lonely neighborhood. Mika tries talking to Lane, but she's unable to actually form words, and Lane notices there's something off with her sister. Now, due to this, I don't think it was Lane that replaced Mika, or at least she didn't do it on purpose. It was most likely the Knights doing it to, maybe in a sense, like, exert some control over Lane. We see that Alice is worried about Lane, and she notes that Lane has been slipping. But Lane appreciates her concern, and we do get a small glimpse of the old, shy Lane for about a second. Then we get some lore. The Knights of Eastern Calculus are the full name, which is a reference to the Knights of Lambda Calculus, which from what I understand is like an inside joke between hackers. She is then taken to Tachibana General Labs by the Men in Black, which I think is supposed to be the birthplace of the Wired. She talks to their client, and they discuss how her online identity has been active, even when Lane is not on the Wired doing anything with it. He asks her if that's her real family that she's living with, and just who she is, to get her to start thinking. And then Lane devolves into this stuttering mess. And given the character that we've seen for the past few episodes, it's a bit jarring, but it's also understandable given the questions that she's being asked and the implications if they are true. A couple other notes about this episode. One, it's surprisingly horny. We get two women being ogled by two different men, and it felt really out of place, given how that's just not been a thing in the show so far. I also noticed there were some beautiful shots of the sky in this episode. Overall, I think it's okay. It's giving some lore to really build up for the next few episodes, with the next episode in particular being one of my favorites in the whole show. Layer 8, Rumors. I'm going to start by saying that this episode is a certified banger. So we start with Lane investigating Tachibana Labs and learn that they are heavily invested in the Wired and its formation. I think this is when she learned about the identity of the god of the Wired, and I'm going to keep calling him that because unfortunately I just don't remember what his actual name is. But he was someone that tampered with the Wired's code and committed suicide after he got caught. But he uploaded his consciousness before he died, which is why he's able to interact with Lane. Lane then has a one-sided conversation with her parents. She talks about the questions the Men in Black's client posed to her about how maybe they really weren't her parents. She sounds genuinely scared and vulnerable as she's asking these questions. Like she already knows the answers but wants to be told that she's wrong. Instead, her parents, when she's done asking, just silently stare at her, giving her all the confirmation that she needs. And Elaine seems like she is barely holding it together in that scene. Her mental state gets worse when she goes to school. Two of her friends are accusing Lane of doing something bad in The Wired, but Lane has no idea what they're talking about. Alice insists that Lane is innocent, but even still, she seems a bit suspicious. Lane, who has no idea what any of them are talking about, is genuinely freaked out about what she might have done without knowing or what someone did in her name and likeness. And then since we've seen, identity and kind of identity crisis as a theme throughout the show so far, I actually thought it was interesting to also see them start tackling the idea of identity theft. Lane ends up having a mental breakdown and speaks to the god of the Wired. And they talk about, what makes him God. He's like, if God is the most powerful person, then that's not me. If God is the creator of the world, that's also not me. But if what you define God as being is omnipresent, then I am God, because I am everywhere here in the Wired. And while Lane is having this conversation with him, she notices all of the students and all of the teachers are just silently staring at her with these judgmental looks, while the only person telling her not to worry about it and that everything okay is Alice. And then we get this really cool shot of Lane just enveloped by fire with this dead look in her eyes. Alright, I guess it's less of a dead apathetic look and just more of a I don't care, everyone is on my shit list kind of look. And it looked great. And it's about this time that we get to meet the third Lane. So the first is the Lane in reality who's very shy and demure. Then there is Lane of the Wired, which is the more assertive and confident personality that we see both sometimes in reality and then sometimes in the Wired as well. Then we get what I'm going to be calling malicious Lane or Mal Lane. I like that because it almost kind of sounds like malware. And this version of Lane only exists in the Wired and is outside of her control. Mal Lane begins spying on Alice, who is having a fantasy about one of their teachers. Alice then realizes Lane is the person who's been spreading these rumors about her having an affair with her teacher, and Mal Lane is just teasing her the entire time. Real Lane has a nightmare that she's being consumed by the Wired and is then haunted by Mal Lane. And they have this Persona 4-esque exchange with Lane saying, like, no, you're not me, and then accusing Mal Lane of being all the parts of her that she hates, and she's literally, like, strangling Mal Lane, who is just laughing and joking about his, like, hey, if you're killing me and I'm you, does that make this a form of suicide? And I adore Persona 4, and clearly this is not a reference to it, because Persona 4 came out a lot later. Maybe that was inspired by Lane, who knows, but I loved it. And then Lane has another vision where she gets replaced by Mal Lane, who is now, like, living her life with her friends at school. And again, we just get this, everything besides the people is just covered in white, showing all of the loneliness. The episode ends with Lane staring at her computer, asking, like, hey, am I the real me? Am I the real Lane? But getting no response. This is my favorite episode of the show at this point. It feels like the climax to the themes of Lane's identity and the anonymity. I love the idea of someone becoming so well known on the internet that the internet can then replicate them. Or showing how someone's reputation can be tarnished by parts of them that even they despise and want to distance themselves from. Again, I know I mentioned cancel culture in an earlier episode, and this has kind of reminded me of that again. We also get that moment between Lane and her parents, which is just so uncomfortable to watch, and yet it's arguably the best scene of the show up to this point. I don't really have a lot to say about the NFL this week, unless there's some big news that just dropped that I have no idea of. Derek Carr got an extension, and I'm happy for him. He went from being the subject of consistent trade rumors, for quite a few years in a row, and now he's playing with one of his best friends. He's got a new coach that seems to really believe in him because, this big extension. Absolute W. Happy for the guy. The Colts got a W of their own as well by picking up Stephon Gilmore in the offseason. I do think the Colts are going to go on a run this year. I do think they're going to end up winning their division. And this is something that's going to really help solidify their secondary. And yeah, aside from Carr and Gilmore, I think that's about it. Now, March Madness may be over, but it's now time for the NBA playoffs. The play-in tournament has ended, and we have our 16 teams. I think the play-in is a fun idea if the teams have similar records, like in the Eastern Conference. 7 and 8 were tied for the same record. 9 and 10 were tied for the same record. And there was a 1-game difference between 7 and 9. When it's that close, I don't mind the idea of the play-in. But over in the West, the Timberwolves had 10 more wins than either the Pelicans or the Spurs. I don't think their spot should have ever been in jeopardy. It's a moot point since they ultimately won, but it wasn't for the Clippers. The Clippers, I think, were actually, let me check. Because I think the Clippers had a 6-game lead or so over the Pelicans. Yeah, the Pelicans had a 6-game lead over the Clippers, but were still able to get in over them. I don't like that. I mean, I get the idea of hey, if you're a playoff team, you should be able to beat the bottom feeders, but I mean, in the NFL, it's any given Sunday, and I mean, I've seen stuff in basketball like that too. I've seen teams that are really good get blown out by 20 by a bad team. It sometimes does happen. I feel like the cutoff should probably be within 5 games. And even that feels like maybe it's a bit much. Maybe closer to about 1 to 3. If you have more breathing room, you should not be able to lose your slot. I think the play-in should be a privilege, not a right. And looking at, a 6-game differential, That's on the fringe. I don't like it, but I could see it. But the Wolves having double digits over 9 and 10, and their spot being potentially in jeopardy, that is something I don't like. But alas, we have our teams. I am a casual NBA fan, so expect all of my predictions to be completely wrong. But I'm going to pick the playoffs anyways. So I've got Suns over the Pelicans in 5 games. The Wolves upset Memphis in 6. I'm going to say that the Warriors beat the Nuggets in 6, especially if Steph comes back. I don't know if he is. And I've also got the Jazz beating the Mavericks in 6. In the Western semis, Warriors over the Wolves in 5. Suns over the Jazz in 5. So Western Conference Finals is the Suns and Warriors, and I've got the Suns winning in 6. In the Eastern Conference, I've got the Heat over the Hawks in 6. Celtics beat the Nets in 5. I don't know why I feel like this. I'm not being like, oh yeah, like the Nets suck, they're gonna lose in 5. Like, no, this is a huge upset. And like I said, I'm casual. My predictions are completely wrong, but I got a feeling it's gonna be some weird series where like all of the games are close, but the Celtics just managed to get the edge in 4 of them before the Nets did. I got the Bucks besting the Bulls in 6, and the Raptors upsetting the Sixers in 6. In the in the semifinals, Bucks over the Celtics in a 7-game series. Heat beat the Raptors in 5. Eastern Conference Finals is, I think, the 3rd year in a row then where the Bucks and the Heat play each other in the playoffs. Funny enough, the first 2 times the winner went on to the finals, and here if it's conference championship, it's the same thing by default. Here I have the Bucks winning in 6, which means the finals are a rematch of last year, Suns and the Bucks. This time I'm going to say the Suns do win. They win in 6 games. Now my Thunder aren't in, so I'm a free agent in terms of who I'm rooting for. I have a good friend who's a very passionate Jazz fan, so I'm going to be rooting for the Jazz, even though I predicted them to lose in round 2. But hey, like I said, I expect to be wrong when it comes to the Jazz. I hope I'm wrong. Go all the way. So moving on to our show updates. I honestly wasn't that impressed with last week's Amphibia episodes. Mother of Alms had Whoopi Goldberg in the eponymous role, which was cool. I would kind of recognize the voice. I was like, who is that? Wait, that's Whoopi Goldberg. Oh yeah, I remember hearing that she was going to be in the show. What the hell? That's so weird, but it's kind of cool. But the episode itself was just really gross, and I didn't find the gross at humor that funny here. And the lore revelation of the 3 girls being chosen one who will save the world with like their superpowers. I feel like at this point we kind of already knew that. Like, I thought at least maybe it was just me, it was like, yeah, I kind of got that vibe from the Temple episodes in season 2, and I mean, Anne has a Super Saiyan Blue form because of the gem. It kind of makes sense the others would get something later too. So what was presented is like, man, this is like this huge lore episode, we've kind of hyped it up. Like, the last episode ended with this, like, man, we're about to meet the Mother of Alms, we're going to learn some important shit, and like, yeah, it felt like we kind of knew it though, so it felt a bit flat. Grimes' pupil gave my boy Grimes some time to shine. And I think he's one of the best characters on the show, and I'm glad that he got to be funny here. I especially enjoyed his line where he's like, I know this undercuts the lesson, but it's too good to pass up. And then he just starts making fun of his sister. Like, that was great. Sprig was fine, if a bit annoying, and I usually really like Sprig, but I just haven't really cared for him in the past few episodes. Like, I don't think he was bad in, like, Mother of Alms or, like, the Sprivey episode. It's like, yeah, he's a bit annoying here. This one, he was kind of annoying. Like, what happened? This is, like, my homie. I don't know. I don't like it. But overall, I think it was an okay pair of episodes, but I expect a lot more from just okay from this show, so I definitely felt disappointed. Survivor, on the other hand, had a phenomenal episode in spite of the stupid hourglass twist. I still hate it. I hate that people can win immunity fair and square, but due to something out of their control, They get it stripped away, like it's the powers of the Black Panther. Now, this season mitigated it somewhat, because at least they were told, hey, the person that you send to exile, they're going to have power, they're going to have the power to change this game, and the winners were offered, if one of you wants to go to exile and have the power to change the game, you can do so. You won't win the immunity that you're not really going to keep, we're not going to tell you that, and you're going to get to eat, but, you won't get the food anymore. What do you want to do? What I hate is it's too much, like, the hourglass is way too much power with no real downside. The downside is, well, you gotta be alone for a couple days. Okay. But then if I break this, I get immunity. And if I didn't break this, I'd be vulnerable. Gee, I wonder what I'm gonna do. Like, it's just dumb. I know they added another big change to the hourglass twist this year. They added Applebee's, but not even Applebee's can save this twist. But I did say the episode was good in spite of that, so let's talk about the stuff I loved. First, the challenge was fun. Jonathan is still an absolute challenge beast, and we got this moment of Drea trying her best in the challenge and Mike doing everything he could to help her. I've always loved the human element of Survivor, even in things like challenges. Like someone is genuinely struggling, but they are still trying their best, and someone who's, on their side, whether it's through an alliance or just part of the tribe trying to push them forward, doing whatever they can to help that person. I just really always enjoy watching it. So the person that ended up getting sent to exile was Roxroy, and he was living his best life out there. He got to make his shelter, he got to tend to his fires. Like, Jeff shows up, and Roxroy's like, hey man, nice to meet you. Here's my shelter. Now, I know you're here to talk about the game, but I'm going to have to tend to my fire at some point. I'm going to have to check on my rice, so I'm sorry if I have to just cut you off. Jeff's like, nah, man, you seem happy out here. This is great. Rox also got to be without Tori, which he seemed to really love that. Like, the fact that part of his decision-making of, should I use the hourglass or not, he literally says, well, there's also the Tori factor. Like, if I do break this and give myself immunity like any sane person, she would be vulnerable and I can't stand her. And like, that level of pettiness was pure gold. And then to make it even better, so when he does rejoin the tribe and he votes, or like his votes seem completely random. It's like he's playing a completely different game from everyone else, but he is dominating at that completely different game. Like, a beetle just landed on his shoulder in the middle of tribal council. People around him are freaking out. He's just sitting there chilling, again, just living his best life. Like, I honestly expect he is going to the final tribal council, and like someone's gonna try to bring him as their goat, unless he gets screwed by like rocks or he goes to fire making, but unfortunately he loses it. After this episode, I am all for having more roxroy screen time. Like, this guy is great. And what I love about this season is I can say that about pretty much everyone. Tori is a hot mess, and I think she's fun to watch. We've got these great human moments between Romeo and Hai, and then with Mike and Jonathan. Marianne is constantly a lot of fun. The fact that no one trusts Chanel makes all of her scenes unintentionally hilarious. A lot like the stuff with Nick sliding into conversations during Winners at War. It was great. I feel like right now, Mike and Hai are my favorites, but I feel like I really am liking everyone overall and be happy with pretty much anyone winning. This episode is also the perfect example of what I was talking about last week, about chaos that's easy to follow. So the target started on Chanel, but then because of the hourglass twist, she got immunity. So at that point, like, well, we can't vote her out. Who's the other person no one can trust? Well, Tori, let's vote out Tori. But then Tori won immunity. So then people are like, well, now what do we do? Well, look at Jonathan. He's this challenge beast. Everyone seems to like him. Maybe let's make him the target. But then they're like, well, Jonathan is part of this new big alliance that we formed, so we want to keep him. Well, who is now vulnerable but not in our big alliance? Well, Marianne. So let's try to vote out Marianne. But then Omar slides in. He's like, hey, Jonathan's my homie. Marianne's my homie. I like both of them. I need to find a way to save them. So he has a conversation with Lydia, and then she seems to be like not as willing to side with the big alliance. He's like, cool. I'm gonna make her look like she is not that trustworthy. She doesn't want to join up with us. Let's vote out her instead. And then this information gets to High, and he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Lydia's my number one. Like, she's my homie. I gotta do what I can to save her. So I'm gonna put the target back onto Marianne. Lots of chaos. But I could follow it no problem. And ultimately, High was not able to swing the votes, and Lydia was the one sent home. I felt like the editing and storytelling was great here, and I hope it continues to stay this strong. So I do have a few video game updates to share. The new LEGO Star Wars game came out. I think it came out last week. The memes coming out of this game are fantastic. Like, it does look genuinely good in terms of, like, both its graphics and its gameplay. So people found out that there are some NPCs, I don't know if it's all of them, but at least some NPCs can't take damage, like children or Jar Jar. And because they don't take damage, they can be comboed endlessly. So what people are doing is they're, like, hitting, like, Jar Jar into the air, smacking him endlessly, but moving forward, and they're using it to, like, sequence break and, like, cross areas that they're not supposed to be able to get to. And it's so funny. There's a report that Namco is going to try to remaster a 3DS action game. I'm not sure what it is, but I hope it's Kid Icarus Uprising. I tried playing it once, but I don't have 8 fingers on each hand, so I couldn't get into the controls. Hopefully, when it gets remastered, it can be designed for a human being to play and not a mutant spider person, because I would really like to be able to play it. A new trailer for Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes came out. It seems the game is not a golden route where the 3 houses work together. You still choose one, and each one is going to have their own unique endings. But it does have a new protagonist, with Curtis being the villain instead of the hero. And I'm honestly more interested in it now than I was before. I really liked 3 Houses, but I was like, I don't want there to be a golden ending. I like the idea that, no, it's like you have to pick one, and, you know, not everyone from the other sides are going to make it, but that is the choice that you have to make. So it seems like it is going to be more in line with that. So I'm more interested. It's not a day one buy for me, but I might check it out if the early buzz is positive. And while I'm on the subject of not yet day one buys, Kingdom Hearts 4. I did rewatch the trailer just to see if it was because, like, I woke up in a bad mood or something, and yeah, I still don't feel much of anything. I don't care about the story at all anymore, and I hate Sora's quadratum design. Now, Nomura himself confirmed that this is only his design in quadratum. He's going to look like normal Sora, I guess, throughout the rest of the game. But quadratum is like the home base. I guess it's going to be like the Traverse Town or Hollow Bastion. So the fact that we're going to probably come back here a lot and keep seeing this design, it's still not endearing me. But apparently, people are speculating that the forest from the trailer is Endor, because you can, like, actually see the, like, footprint of the machines. I don't know what it's called, like the AT something. I almost said AT field, but that's completely different from Star Wars. I mean, I'll be honest, like I said, I don't really care about the story anymore, but I would love a lightsaber keyblade and a fight with Darth Vader. It's something I really wanted in Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm a huge Disney fan, and I can see myself being lured in with cool new Disney stuff. You know, a DuckTales world, a Gravity Falls world, or a fight with Bill Cipher. Jungle Book, Zootopia, a Wreck-It Ralph world. Fight with Thanos. You're like, those are things that can make me really interested in playing the game. Or, I don't know, Final Fantasy stuff. We haven't had a Sephiroth fight since 2. It was genuinely missing from 3. Give me another fight with him. One with against, like, Kefka, Gilgamesh. I was really expecting Kingdom Hearts 3 was going to have, like, Noctis in it. I thought it was going to have lightning in it. I want to see and fight Final Fantasy characters. I'm definitely going to have to wait and see when it comes to this game if I want to buy it or not. Which I feel so wrong to say about Kingdom Hearts. Apparently reaction commands are coming back, which is really cool. Like, it's something I loved from 2. But that's not nearly enough to change my opinion on it yet. And speaking of things I don't expect to change my opinion on, here's a piece I recorded, I think, last week about a show called Mushkou Tensei. I've talked before about my passion for lists. I love a good top 10 list as much as the next person, but I'm talking about to-do lists. I get a rush when I'm able to cross something off my list and just see that I've made progress. This doesn't just apply to chores or life goals. I also have fiction lists, anime to watch, games to play, books to read, etc. And I try to compile all of the stuff that, I've watched, played, read, etc. into a giant list at the end of the year so I can say, okay, these are all the works of fiction I've experienced. Were there some favorites? Were there some ones I didn't like so much, etc., etc.? One such anime on my list for this year was Mushkou Tensei. The anime was pitched to me as the granddaddy of all isekais. For those unfamiliar with the term, isekai refers to a series where the protagonist begins a new life in a new world. And this usually happens in one of two ways. A, being summoned through some kind of ritual or spell and continuing as the person that they are, such as like Visions of Escaflowne or Mare Heaven. Or 2, dying and being reincarnated and starting life completely over, such as Tanya the Evil, or that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Mushkou Tensei is of the latter kind. The protagonist is a shut-in who refuses to leave his house because of years of severe bullying. This leads to him becoming addicted to porn and video games, and he spends his parents' funeral engrossed in let's call it a happy time session. His siblings return from the funeral, beat his ass, break his computer, and kick him out of the house. He saves some kids from being hit by a truck, and he dies in their stead. However, he is born into another world to a pair of retired adventurers. He's named Rudius, and I forget what his original name is, but he has all the memories and mentality of his mid-30s self. Rudius takes a shine to magic and then gets better at it when his family hires a tutor. And the tutor not only helps him with the spells and stuff, but also helps him overcome his fears of going outside. He befriends a girl from the village before being sent to be a magic tutor to his cousin. That covers the first 5 episodes and part of the 6th, which is about as far as I got before I crossed the show off my list and decided I never wanted to watch it again. And don't worry, hypothetical audience, we'll get to why. We are certainly going to get to why. But before I talk about what I sincerely loathe about this show, I want to praise a few things. First, the animation's great. The spells all look amazing, and there's so much life and color on screen at almost all times. Rudius's graduation spell in particular looked fantastic, and this is one of the big things that the show's proponents are going to talk about. I feel like there's people who have said, yeah, I think the show's writing and story is terrible. I just watch it for the animation. I can't do that, but I can easily understand why someone would. Second, the music. The opening and ending themes are both good, and it struck me how there wasn't an opening sequence at the start of each episode. Instead, the opening theme and credits just play during the first few minutes of plot each episode. I'm a sucker for a good opening sequence, and sometimes a good opening can convince me to keep watching a bad show. Looking at you, Guilty Crown. But I honestly liked how Mushkou Tensei didn't try to waste time with that. It was just here's the music, just putting it over the show, let's get right into things. And third, I do like the general concept. Rudius isn't a likable character, but I can't deny that he has genuine trauma. And the universe granting him a second chance at a happy life and seeing him try to make the most of that chance can be enjoyable to watch. But, as I alluded to, I hate this character. I hate him because he's a disgusting, perverted jackass who crosses into uncomfortable territories way too many times. So let's discuss some examples of this. When Rudius first wakes up in the other world, he sees 2 people. A man making weird faces, and a well-endowed woman. He stares at her boobs and then reaches out to grab them, thinking to himself, he's like, hey, I mean, this is what you get for just having him hang out like that. Then he realizes he has tiny baby hands, and his situation dawns on him. Now, him in the body of a baby, but in having the mentality of himself, if it's just like, you know, he looks forward to the breastfeeding sessions, they get it. Him looking at the maid, thinking the maid is attractive, I get it. But in one of the first scenes of the show, he tries to grope a woman, essentially in his own words, because she's asking for it for having a large chest. And the only thing that stops him is him being physically incapable because his hands are too small. It is an awful first impression. And he really doesn't get much better. Now, I mentioned earlier that he has a magic tutor. And the two of them develop like a genuine friendship as she helps him grow as a mage and overcome his past trauma. How does he repay her? By stealing her underwear and carrying it with him as a holy relic? And that's actual dialogue, like he constantly refers to her underwear as his holy relic. And so Roxy, the tutor, reveals later that she knew he was stealing her underwear, but he's never chastised for it. I think it's supposed to be charming, but it's not. It's harassment. I feel like I'm supposed to be rooting for this guy and his growth, but it's hard because he's such a sleazeball. Then there's his friend, Sylphiette. He saved her from some bullies, they became besties, and then he starts teaching her magic. Now you probably realized in that sentence, I was using female pronouns, because she's a girl. Although, Rudius thinks she's a boy when they first meet due to her having short hair. There's a scene where they both get wet. I believe it's after trying like some water magic. Then they go back to his house. They're going to take a bath. He insists that they bathe together, but she refuses. He keeps pushing her, and she's like, no, no, no. Till finally he just takes off her pants, and that's how her gender gets revealed to him. Now, to his credit, he does feel horrible about it. He genuinely had no idea she had a different gender. He had no perverse intentions. He just thought, hey, we're both boys. It's faster. It's more efficient. Let's just take a bath together. That being said, no means fucking no, man. Like, Rudius's trauma is that he was stripped naked, had pictures taken of his body, and then he was bullied about his body. Like, he has his traumatic flashbacks is people making fun of the size of his penis. You'd think him of all people would understand if someone doesn't want to get naked in front of him. Like if they have some kind of shame or embarrassment about their body, regardless of their gender. But no, that thought never even crossed his mind. He wasn't like, oh my goodness, like you have... I think he kind of brings it up at one point where he's like, hey, I mean, I know what it's like to be embarrassed, but I mean, you'll get over it. Like, what a dick! Man, like, I really just hate this guy. And then it gets worse. Like, it's either that night or the night, I think it's the night after, where it's been, like, some time, or, like, they've made up, and he's like, okay, like, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And she's like, it's okay. Like, you didn't mean it that way, but just, you know, don't do that again. He's like, okay, I won't. Then he's in bed, and he's thinking about her, and how he wants to develop a life with her. At this point, his body is like, I want to say 7 years old, but he's mentally around 40-ish. Now, on one hand, you know, a young boy thinking about a future with the girl next door is kind of sweet, and it could be the foundation of a good relationship. But on the other hand, he's 40, and she's a kid. It's just kind of icky. Now, you could argue that, you know, he's not interested in her sexually. He just wants to find love in his new life. Since he's technically a kid, you know, it does make sense for him to go after someone his own age so that they can actually grow old together and grow up together. Fair enough, but he literally talks about, like, molding her into the woman of his dreams. Of, like, you're talking about grooming, and he's beating his meat the whole time. Like, it's played for laughs, and it's not funny. Like, who thought this was okay? What's wrong with you people? So this is all the first 4 episodes, and at this point I had stopped watching and just took a break. I heard the show was gorgeous and it lived up to the hype, but my like of the show was in spite of its writing. It's not even like something like Guilty Crown or King's Game, where where the writing is so unbelievably dumb or insane that I had to keep watching because I had to go down that rabbit hole and continue my descent into madness. This was something that just made me feel genuinely uncomfortable and gross. And it made me seriously reconsider if I wanted to watch more. But alas, hypothetical audience, I didn't want to drop it just yet. Because baby, it got better. Muv-Luv certainly did. It had a horrible first impression. And then it ended as one of the just most raw emotional experiences I had ever had with a work of fiction. And with all the praise that Mushkou Tensei was getting, I wanted to give it that chance. Maybe it can redeem itself. Maybe it's he's a really bad kid at first, but he really grows out of it. Then I reached my breaking point, where I could no longer continue watching the show in good faith, or even out of bile fascination. A scene that left me feeling genuinely disgusted. Rudius is sent to live with his cousin Eris, and act as her tutor in magic, mathematics, etc. Eris is a bratty piece of shit, and immediately the best thing about the show. Her introduction is her slapping Rudius in the face for not addressing her properly. He softly slaps her back and then starts lecturing about it. It's hey, so, I just hit you because you hit me, and you see, getting hit in the face, it's not okay. And then she just cold clocks him and just starts punching the shit out of him. I was this is I'm sorry, I love good slapstick, and the timing of the two slaps and the punch was perfect comedic timing. I loved it. I honestly thought Eris might be what would save the show for me. The rest of her debut episode is honestly really good. When Rudius is being snarky and clever without the sexual harassment, I can genuinely enjoy his character. But then I got to episode 6. So Eris runs out during a tutoring lesson. Rudius follows her and finds her sleeping in a barn. He decides this is the perfect opportunity to molest her. He reaches around, gropes her breast, muses on she has potential to become well endowed, with this creepy look on his face. The scene continues with him looking at her legs and her dress, and deciding to add another holy relic to his collection. He reaches his hands up her dress, grabs her underwear, and I stopped watching. Where do I begin with this? First, he touched a person in a sexual way without consent and on purpose. Failure to give consent due to incapacitation is the same as no. You fucking sicko. Second, he touched his cousin in a sexual way that had an element of incest. You fucking sicko. Third, he touched a 9-year-old girl in a sexual way to add pedophilia to his character, just in case the situation with Sylphiette wasn't bad enough. You fucking sicko. Fourth, he decided he wasn't satisfied with groping a child and decided to steal her underwear to keep as a trophy. You fucking sicko. Fifth, everything I mentioned is played as a joke because Rudius sees literally nothing wrong with anything he's doing. You fucking sicko. And sixth, he's mentally a 40-year-old man who should know better and still thought all of this was okay and got a sexual thrill from it. You fucking sicko. Sexual misconduct toward a child is a line that should never be crossed. I can't see a character willingly do what Rudius did and root for them ever again. It doesn't matter what good things he might do in the future of the series, because I will remember him as the sick fuck who molested a 9-year-old and thought it was funny. At that point, I didn't want to see anything else the show could offer me. I know people like it, And like I said earlier, I can understand liking it for the art and the music. It's good. Maybe the quality of the writing gets better, but I genuinely don't care enough to find out. It's off my list, and good riddance. It gives me time to catch... It gave me time to catch up on the movie rewatches, and I got so much more out of them than I feel like I ever would have gotten if I kept watching Mushkou Tensei. And we're back, hypothetical audience, and something I try to do when I'm recording, whether it's an opinion piece, life updates, current events, I try to not drop F-bombs. I'll use other profanity. I know I say shit a lot. It rolls off the tongue. So does fuck, if I'm being honest. I use it a lot in my everyday life. I shouldn't, but I do. But I do, at least when I'm doing this, want to try to cut back on it. Clearly the last opinion piece was an exception. And I felt like, as much as I don't want to just cluster... As much as I don't want to drop a cluster F-bomb in one piece, I really want to get through how disgusted I was with this character and his actions. And I felt that that was an appropriate time to do so. That's pretty much it. Oh, the fortune. That's right. So my fortune this week was honestly kind of ominous. It just said, make serious decisions in the last few days of the month. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's like, man, like, all right, something good's gonna happen. It's like, all right, cool. Now I can like really plan out my life because like I just won the lottery, or it's like, something bad happened and now I have to make real crazy decisions. Or third option, it is literally just a piece of paper stuffed inside I don't even know what a fortune cookie is. Like, it's not really a sweet. I don't know if it's really like a biscuit either. But anyways, it's something stuffed inside a snack, inside a plastic wrapper, and it means nothing. And that's probably what it is. But, that's not fun. It's always fun to think there's something more important or higher at play. I am a Christian, so that is one reason I think of that. Another is, well... I like stories. I like the idea that things happen for a reason, even if we don't know what the reason is. Like, I hate nihilism. I really hate nihilism as a theme. It's why I stopped getting into Rick and Morty, because it's like its ultimate theme, that at least that I'm getting from it, just doesn't click with me, and I'm good. I think another thing I don't like about nihilism is the way I usually see it, it's like, okay, nothing matters. So I basically get free reign to be an asshole. Like in Everything Everywhere All at Once, the antagonist, like the chaotic force, has that mentality. I remember there's an episode, or it's not even just like an episode, there's like an arc in The Good Place, which is a phenomenal show. Absolutely loved it. Cried at the ending because, oh my god, that final episode was so, ugh. Anyways, point. There's a part where there's a character who's like, hey, I don't believe any of this is real. I think I'm hallucinating. And because none of this is real, nothing matters. So she just starts being an asshole to everyone all the time. It's like, that's a lot of what I see in nihilism. It's like, if nothing matters, it gives me free reign to be a jerk. And like, no, if nothing matters, that's all the more reason to be kind. Because at least you can make your existence more pleasant. You can make the existence of other people more pleasant. It ultimately doesn't matter, but you can make the moment matter. But that's just me. I think that's pretty much it. And unlike last week, I'm not feeling really angry or upset because of the Kingdom Hearts trailer. Which means I get to sing a goodbye song. Hey, this was really fun. We hope you liked it too. Seems like it's just begun when suddenly we're through. Goodbye, goodbye, good friends, goodbye. But now it's time to go. But hey, I say, well, that's okay, 'cause we'll see you very soon, I know. Very soon, I know. Sorry, my cats was just kind of giving me a weird feed. They distracted me a little bit. Goodbye, goodbye. Good friends, goodbye. And tomorrow, just like today, the moon, the bear, and the big blue house will be waiting for you to come and play. To come and play. To come and play. Bye now.